welcome to the Cruising is Life podcast. Whether you're a seasoned cruiser or just starting out, we have something for everyone. So sit back, relax, and get ready to set sail with us on the Cruising is Life podcast.
All right, hello everyone. Welcome back to the Cruising is Life podcast. Welcome back for another episode. Today we're going to be reviewing our recent cruise here on, well, not here, but on board the MSC Seascape, both of our second MSC cruise. But welcome back, Dimitri. How are you? Of course. Yeah, doing good, and yeah, ready to kind of talk about our recent experience and all the chaos that also occurred throughout that cruise. Well, at least one event in particular, but yes, she seascaped the dock at one point in time. But, oh, crap. I forgot to switch over your audio. Thank you, George, for letting me know. Yeah, they couldn't hear you, but they could hear me.
Oh, my
There we go.
God, what a worst mistake.
Here we go.
What a rookie mistake. Oh, my God.
Shout out George in the chat for picking that up really quickly. But yes, the Seascape escaped the dock at one point in time, which was quite wild and also went quite viral as well, which I guess is to no surprise, but at the same time, at least I personally did not expect it to go that crazy. But yeah, but we'll get into that later on in the podcast here. But so just a quick rundown. We had a 3-night cruise on board the Seascape. Again, second time for both of us. He sailed on Seascape before, and I sailed on Seashore, which is basically identical. So not our first rodeo when it comes to MSC, but a 3-night cruise to Nassau and Ocean Cay from Miami. Yes. And then also we did take the Brightline down to Miami from MCO, or the Orlando airport. That was your first time on Brightline. How would you rate your experience with Brightline?
I loved it. It was 10 out of 10 times better than having to drive, and I hate driving. So
right.
I would definitely do it again. I mean, it was cheaper than my gas bill would have been. Maybe not the parking bill included, but we'll
yeah, that caught us off guard.
At the lady. Sorry, side note, I yelled at the lady.
Did you really?
I was like, that's not right.
Yeah, it was 3 days. So it cost us $96 to park for 3 days at the airport.
Why did I think it was $20 a day?
It should. I'm pretty sure it was. I'll have to ask my parents actually, because maybe they didn't park their car there for the anthem, but like.
Well, no, yeah.
When it said $96, when it said $96, I about had a stroke. I was like, I was expecting like 50. Yeah. But so yeah, other than the parking at MCO, which was nuts, overall Brightline experience was very good. I thought it was very quick, very easy, hassle free. Our return as well on Brightline was fantastic. The debarkation was so fast, and we'll get to that a little bit. Debarkation was so fast, we were able to get actually a train earlier than what we originally wanted. We walked right up to the desk, and they said, we'll get you on the next train.
Yep.
But yeah, so pretty much took the Brightline down for, it took about 4 hours or so. Stopped in Boca, West Palm, Aventura, and then down in Miami as well. But took us a couple hours, and then we pretty much just got a quick Uber over to the port. Or I guess your friend picked us up.
Our friend picked us up. Yes, thank you, Dylan. He probably will not be watching this, but thank you, Dylan.
Yes. Yeah, it was quite nice. He just happened to be in the area and ended up being able to pick us up and take us straight over to the port. But our train arrived around 9:50, which was extremely early. We actually had a 1 p.m. boarding time. So we got to the terminal super early, and then we ended up just being able to get right on the ship, and was one of the first boarding groups actually.
Yep.
And so with the new terminal, what were your thoughts on the new terminal, though?
I loved it. I think it was about time somebody did something right with the terminal. I mean, Royal Caribbean's terminals, they've done pretty good lately in Canaveral and even with Miami. But it was seamless. I mean, we didn't even stop walking, once we got in. Everything's face recognition now and
That was
nine
cool.
yards. So you didn't really even have to do anything. You just kind of looked at the camera and it did the rest.
Right, yeah, and you mentioned the face recognition. Like all we had to do was like when we first walked in, there was a little scanner, and all we did was place our passport on top of the scanner and then look at the camera, and it was like, and it lit up green and told you to keep walking. Like
Yep.
that was awesome. That was great. It was very hassle free. No issues with the machines. Just kept the line moving, and it wasn't like it.
I don't know if you counted, but there were 48 security checkpoints in that terminal.
48.
Yes.
Wow.
So even if they end up putting 2 ships there, there's plenty
That's
of security
plenty.
checkpoints for
Right.
people to get in.
Yeah, that's plenty of them. I didn't even notice there was that many, but yeah, 48. I mean, especially I remember when they first announced the AA, AAA terminal, and they're like, yeah, it'll be large enough to handle 2 world-class ships, which was, crazy to think about, but with the efficiency and as much, they had like as much as they had, for checkpoints and security and for waiting and all that, like I could easily see it. I don't know if the dock is long enough. I think it could be. I don't know for sure, but I think they could get 2 world class ships in there, and with the recent announcement of the 5th and 6th ones coming, who knows? We may get it.
Agreed.
But yeah, the check-in process was very simple and all of that. We had we had a 1 p.m. boarding time. I can't guarantee every time because I've heard sometimes they'll turn you away. We may have just been lucky, and I think about 9 times out of the 10 you're gonna get through anyways. So if you want to, you may end up getting stuck waiting, but we didn't really have much of a problem. Again, we boarded pretty much at 10:30 that morning, so probably one of the quickest and easiest and hassle-free embarkations that I've ever been through.
Yeah, and sorry, looking at the chat, Coop, I have no idea what's wrong with my microphone. It's the same one I've always been using.
Yeah.
So, sorry, we'll listen to Brandon's serenading voice more than mine.
His microphone's a little poopy today, but
It's a little poopy.
yeah, it was, again, I can't really stress how great
I mean, even like getting to the terminal, like driving,
it was easy, yeah.
no traffic, it was so early in the morning. So
It was early in the morning. It was also a Thursday. There was only the Virgin ship there with us. It was only Valiant Ladies. So, I guess it wasn't a typical day with, 3, 4, 5, plus ships. But at the same time, like, it was very easy to get there. And it seemed like it was almost if I remember correctly at least. So you kind of go over that little overpass in front of B and it spits you right down into A. But if you, like, just hang the other lane, it shoots you straight down, and like it just goes straight into what you need. Like you'll turn in, you'll even go up a ramp and everything like that for the drop off. So, and it actually separates car drop offs from bus drop offs. I think buses got to go straight, and they're at the bottom.
Buses go underneath, and then cars go to the second level.
Right. Like, why has nobody ever thought of that before? Like, we had these giant parking structures with all of these amazing new terminals, and mixing around buses and mixing around cars. I think with Terminal A, it was like, oh, as you come in, it's buses, but as you go around the loop, then it's cars, and it's like you're still mixing cars and buses together. But here, they're fluidly separated, and then they all will merge down into the ramp at once they're over and done with. But that terminal was very well laid out. Like efficiency was like its absolute strongest point.
Agreed.
So can't say enough good things about what MSC did with that terminal. But our embarkation day, since we got on so early, we actually had to wait around for a little bit. The embarkation day lunch at the buffet was around 11 o'clock. We were on the ship before or right around 10:30, so we had some time to kill.
Yeah, we were on 10:45 because we were like, oh, let's go do our muster drill, and then as soon as we walked into the atrium, we were like, oh, where's F? And then we like looked to the left. Oh my God, it's right there.
Right
so
there.
like we could just scan, and we just got that done super quick. And then we like walked around, and then we were like one of the first.
Yeah, having the empty ship was really cool.
Yeah.
I will say it had a bit of a shaky start with the food. I will say.
I will say I was not impressed by the lunch on Embarkation Day at all.
Yes, I will say overall the food was very good on the ship, which was, is one of, when you look at reviews, that's MSC's biggest struggle point, it seems like, but is typically the food for a variety of reasons, but it's also something that seems to be hit or miss. But the Embarkation Day lunch stood out as quite rough.
Horrible.
My grilled cheese was not grilled.
My pizza did not have any cheese on it.
Yes.
It was missing the cheese on the pizza.
Right. And it felt like, they usually will hang the curtains down, to block the food before it opens up. But with this lunch in particular, because we'll get into the rest, because honestly, the rest of the food was fantastic, or at least, very, very good. So, but it seemed like they had all of that food laying out behind those curtains for like over an hour before they finally raised them up and then let people start grabbing them, because everything was cold. It was either cold or just just wasn't very good in the first place. So like my mac and cheese overall was good, but it was very cold. It was cold mac and cheese. The garlic bread, good. You can't screw up garlic bread, but it was a little cold. The grilled cheese, the cheese wasn't melted. But that was really the only scenario where the food was bad. I think the rest of the cruise, it was great. Or at least, everything was warm at that point. So I think because it was so early, and I also think maybe they should have just put the food out when they opened the buffet in the first place and not leave it out and then open it later. Mm-hmm. But that was really the only scenario where I thought the food was not good. But we did have 2 nights of specialty dining, we had a package. I think it was $55 per person for 1 night of specialty dining, or it was $99 per person for 2, and then it was $139 for 3 nights, which in this case it was a 3-night cruise. So that was really the only package you can, or like the highest package you can get. But we opted for the 2 for $99 a piece. The first night of the cruise, we went to Butcher's Cut, which is the steakhouse.
Well, we're skipping. We got the whole day at Embarkation to go, but food-wise.
Yes, on the topic of food, yes.
Oh, God. Okay.
On the topic of food, though, but we'll get back to.
I was very surprised with my steak and how good it was.
Yes, you had the filet as well, right?
Yeah, we had the same thing.
Okay, yeah, we both had the filet, and that was probably one of the best fillets I've had on a cruise ship in a while.
Mm-hmm. Yep, agreed.
But I guess, moving. So that was a good scenario with the food as well. I kind of wanted to kind of balance those out, because that was really, again, that Embarkation Day lunch kind of set the bar a little low because it was not great, but everything else afterwards was good.
The service was good. Just the whole cruise, like the crew, I had no issues with the crew. Mm-hmm. Usually sometimes you kind of get a rude one here or there, but it was good. They were nice. The restaurant, they're still nice, kind.
Right. But we'll switch back to our Embarkation Day activities. So following the lunch and the buffet, we kind of roamed around the ship for a little bit, and our room was actually opened up pretty early.
Mm-hmm.
Usually with MSC, which is kind of a nice thing that they do, is that you can actually go into your room ahead of time. You can't stay there, but because they are cleaning it, as they're cleaning it during that Embarkation Day, you're carrying around lots of bags, you're carrying around your soda cans and all that. So it's nice that they allow you to go into the room and drop everything off, and then you can go back to your normal Embarkation Day activities. Mm-hmm. With our room, at least, they had... Yes, that too. With our Embarkation Day activities, though, when we got to the room was actually already done, which was nice. The room itself was very nice. We had booked a inside cabin room and got upgraded for free to a balcony cabin, which is now the second time in a row. I'm 2 for 2 with MSC on that happening. We hadn't put in an upgrade. We didn't do anything for an upgrade. It just, when we got our room assignment, when we had our random assignment interior, they gave us a balcony. So that was quite nice.
The room was weird because it didn't have a shower. It had a bathtub. Did you check the deck plans to see if it was marked special because of that? Check the deck plans. I'm working.
Yeah. Yes.
But see if it was like it has like a triangle on top for like bathtub or kid friendly or.
Right, because so it was weird because we did have like you said, a bathtub, which was interesting. 174 is green, which is just a deluxe balcony. 174. There's no like marking next to it saying that it's a special cabin or anything like that.
Really?
It looks slightly wider than the ones next to us, which is kind of odd, but there's nothing special. At least on the deck plans that I'm looking at, there's nothing special about it. But yeah, like you mentioned, it has a bathtub, which was odd. Weirdly enough, didn't have a door though. So basically, when you were taking a shower, just water went everywhere.
Water went everywhere. It was like we were waterboarding the floor. It was horrible.
Yes. The towel rack was in a weird spot. Overall, great room though. But yes, it was kind of odd.
Great, but the bathroom was a 0 out of 10.
The bathroom
there was no space to put any. Imagine doing a 7-day cruise or a transit. There was no space to put anything.
Right. Usually there's like space to put stuff on the counter.
Everywhere. It was like the water was just.
Yeah. Usually there's like space on the counter to put stuff in or like shelves and stuff like that. This one just had like the tub just took up so much space. And again, like you said, the bathroom was something to kind of like, yeah, it wasn't good, but the rest of the room was very nice.
Mm-hmm.
The bathroom was also dirty when we went in there, but I will give mad props and big props to MSC. So we went down there and we went down to guest services and said, hey, our bathroom's a little on the dirty side. It's got the tub. It was very gross, and we said something, and within the 5 minutes that it took us to get back to the room, they were already pretty much knocking on the door, ready to clean it, and they did a very good job to clean it as well, which was great. Obviously, I would hope they did a good job cleaning it, but sometimes with a cruise line, and sometimes like with even hotels in general, you'll get you'll complain about something or something will be dirty, and they're like, hey, can you come clean this up? And then they don't do a very good job because they're like, oh, whatever. But they actually did a very good job. They even like regrouted some of the parts of the bathtub, which was
they
very good.
Regrouted the whole shower.
Yes, and as an apology, which was very nice. Didn't expect them or ask them to do this, but as an apology, they did leave a bottle of champagne for us the following day, which was very nice.
Consumed appropriately.
Consumed appropriately by myself, because Dimitri doesn't like champagne. But so I will say the customer service when it comes to guest services and just the Seascape in general, customer service was fantastic in that regard. So I will give them mad props for that one. The rest of the room again was very nice, lots of space. At least like when it came to the desk, I think there was a lot of outlets for charging things, whether it was the USBs or the European sockets or even just like the little home outlets. Basically, like there was a lot of space and there was a lot of things you could plug in.
But I will say it's not MSC or anything. I like the other room design where the desk and stuff is on by the balcony. Yeah, yes. I like, and the bed first, because at least all your clutter and all your suitcases, it's away. So if you're just coming in and out of the room, it's not like right there. Right. That's luck of the draw,
Yeah, it's back and forth basically. I think they align them that way because I had basically the same category balcony on the seashore, and the only difference was, of course, it didn't have the bathtub, but oddly the same category room. I guess the bathtub must just be a random thing, but we had the one where the bed came first, and then it was the couch, and then the balcony.
Yeah,
So
like that.
I think that just kind of depends on which one you get.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I do agree on that one. But lots of lights, able to do the random, like master switch to where it hits all the lights, stuff like that. And the balcony was also quite large. I thought it was a really good size balcony.
Yeah, the balcony was fine.
Yes. Other than that, yeah, that was kind of the rundown on the room. The overall good room. Other than the bathroom, kind of made it iffy, but the room itself was very good.
Yep.
So yeah, our room was already done, ready to clean, or ready and already cleaned by the time we even got there to drop some stuff on. So we pretty much hung out for a few minutes, and then it was about time for Sailaway at that point. We left pretty early that day.
Did.
I think we left around 4:30. Typically, Seascape will leave around 5 to 5:30, so it was, nice that we left a little early. Not that we really had anywhere to go, but Sailaway was overall pretty good. Empty day in Miami, so there wasn't a whole lot for us to see. But the Sailaway was good. It looked like the Sailaway party was a lot of fun. A lot of really good fun atmosphere. A lot of people dancing and stuff like that.
We already talked about dinner.
Yes. So again, going back to dinner. Dinner was very good on there. Yeah, the filet was fantastic. I definitely would recommend Butcher's Cut. And I also would recommend just like the specialty dining package in general. Yeah, it sucks that you had to pay a little bit extra for the food, but honestly, I think it was well worth it. With the quality meal that we got out of both nights of our dining package, I had no problem with the price.
Yep.
And you're also, we paid $99 a piece for 2 nights worth of very good specialty dining, whereas if you're comparing to Royal Caribbean, 1 night of hibachi at Azumi is going to run you about $80 or $70 to $80. So you can't even, and that's per person. So definitely a lot of value in what you're getting when you get the specialty dining, or at least go at least once, twice, 3 times, however many times, but you're going to get a good value, I think. What did we do the first night of the cruise afterwards? I think we just kind of hung out around the ship. Didn't really do a whole lot, I think. I got my ship model, and which was the whole reason for me to go.
3 a.m. that morning, so we were pretty beat.
Right. Our train going down was at 3 a.m.
Well, no, it was at 4:45, but we had to be up at 3.
Oh, we were up at 3, yes, but yeah, it was like a 5:30, 5:20, 5:45, something like that. Yeah, it was an early day, so our embarkation day was cut a little short just because we were a little tired, but I did get my ship model.
For the ship. Oh, we went to the casino.
Oh, you're right. We did go to the casino. I lost $60 in like 10 minutes.
I lost $70 in about 5 minutes.
He was betting a lot more than I was. He's like, all right, I'm done. I'm like, dude, I haven't even gone through $10 yet. I haven't won anything. But yeah, it's just the luck of the draw. It just be like that sometimes. But yeah, overall embarkation day, I think was, it was an overall great embarkation day on board the ship.
Yeah, it was good.
So following day was in Nassau. Not our first time around Nassau, which, as to be expected, but have you been back since they redid it, or?
We on Seascape, we were one of the first ships to dock at the new port. It had only been open for like a week.
Oh, okay. So you had been there already.
I had been there, but when we went, like, it was done, but like nothing was really open, if that makes sense.
Got it. Okay, that makes sense. So yeah, it was overall. I think Nassau, of course, is definitely much nicer than it used to be. They did a good job with that port area. We didn't really do a whole lot other than just taking photos of the ships and videos and stuff like that. That's kind of what our normal thing to do in Nassau is anyways.
Yeah, I could care less about anything else, really. It was a nice surprise Oasis joined us. I know we just had a bunch of Carnival
Yes, she skipped Labadee and ended up coming to Nassau, which was nice. That happened with Symphony when I sailed on Liberty of the Seas last year. So
Yeah.
it was nice to see her for sure. And then we had Sunrise, Carnival Freedom, and the Carnival Celebration. It was great to see Celebration for sure. I've only seen her a handful of times. It was cool to see her in a different location as well.
Yeah, and I mean the other thing is it was a full day. I mean the port area like wasn't like too busy,
Mm-mm.
but yeah, it was fine. And then shout out Christian, thanks for coming up to us. A
Yes.
local viewer. Promise we don't bite. Brandon may bite, but I don't bite.
Well, no. Yeah, we had we had a viewer that was on the cruise that came up to us that morning that we were coming to Nassau, and we ended up hanging out with him pretty much a lot throughout the cruise. So it was cool to meet him and everything like that, and kind of meeting fans is always really fun. So yeah, we hung out with him pretty much for all the arrivals, other than coming back in Miami, which don't blame him. It was like 4 a.m. But
right.
Yeah,
yeah.
it's always cool. Yeah, it's always cool.
Very cool.
I guess so. We already been through the day in Nassau, so we watched Sailaways pretty much.
Oh, yeah.
What was it? I think.
Hung out by the pool. The pool was empty.
Yes. Oh, we did the water slides. Yes.
Slides
So
were
I did my
fun.
ship tour. Once we got back. Dimitri hung out by the pool. We did end up going in the water slides this time. It was a little too cold when I sailed on Seashore, so it was nice to try those. Those were actually good slides.
Yeah, they are.
Basically, there's 2 identical ones on one side of the ship that are basically like racers, and then there's one on the other side that was a raft slide. The raft slide was unexpectedly kind of crazy.
Mm-hmm.
It had just like a really
Christian
sudden drop.
He got like ejected from the water slide at the end.
I remember when we were waiting in line, there was these 2 ladies that came down. They had so much momentum coming down that they went all the way to the end, which, they had like
further than anybody else. It was funny.
Right, like the pool of water that's usually at the end of the slides like that, usually there's like a good 10 feet. This was like extended probably a good at least 30 to 40 feet maybe. And they made it all the way to the end. They had a lot. It was because there's such a sudden drop right at the end as it spits you out into it. So you get a lot of speed going down, and we were like, oh my gosh. But yeah, so the water slides were very fun. And then just hanging out by the pool was very good too.
Yep.
Lots of loungers, lots of deck chairs. There really wasn't any shortage. I know we were in port technically, but Nassau is always one of those days where I would say probably most of the ship, or at least 50-50, would stay on board. Like they don't really get off the ship that day, so that's usually going to be the busier day on board while you're in port. So it was nice to see that there was lots and lots of places to sit and relax and all that.
Yeah, plenty. I mean, obviously we didn't have a sea day, but I've been on a sea day on that class of ship, and trust me, you will not have any issues finding a deck chair on that class.
Yeah. When I did Seashore, we had that. We were supposed to go to Ocean Cay, and ended up not going, and we had no problem sitting out up on. We ended up going up to 19, but it was didn't have any problem. There was a lot of loungers still up there.
Yeah.
So, yeah, very good. That's like one of the strong suits of that class, is that there's just like so much open deck space for stuff like that, and there's never really a problem when it comes to sea days and just finding loungers and space.
Yep.
So following all the Sailaways and all that evening, we went to Kaito Teppanyaki for the hibachi dinner. What would you rate that?
I mean, I'd rate it pretty good. I mean, you can't go wrong with teppanyaki, but I mean,
Right.
if I were to rate it against Norwegian and Royal, I'd still put it third.
Really?
From the basically you have 3 options. You have like a cheap, a middle, and a high. So the cheap and the middle were included in your package, but if you wanted the high one, you had to pay $20. But like, what if I wanted chicken instead of beef? Like, you can't do that. Or if I wanted scallops instead of shrimp,
Mm-hmm.
calamari instead of there's
Yeah.
no choice. Whatever
Yeah.
comes with it is what you get. And
Right.
the show was great. The chef was good and everything, but
Yeah. It was a Dominican
I
guy
mean,
again.
yes, another Dominican guy. But
It was like that on Seashore. I like jokingly was like, huh, very authentic Japanese food coming from a Dominican man. It was still good. I'm not complaining. It was just always, it's so funny just like to think of that.
yeah, and I mean the other thing is that like obviously you get a lot of food. Like I'm not saying you
Yes,
didn't
it
get
was a
like
lot.
enough food. But, like yeah, if I'm going to a teppanyaki and I'm paying $55, I want like a mountain of rice. I want to have leftover. I want to have the
Right.
steak, 5 pieces of steak, like little pieces. Like, what the hell am I supposed to do with that?
Yeah.
So it's like I think you're paying more for the show instead of the actual food. Where I
Yeah.
think the other lines they do both. So it was
Yeah.
still good.
Maybe the,
Fine. You can never go wrong with teppanyaki, but
yeah, I mean,
it was,
I think we had a decent amount of, they give us a lot. There's many, or at least multiple courses of the meal. So I guess that's why they give us the smaller cut. But at the
true,
same
but I
time,
mean
it's
like
like, at the same
five
time, like,
pieces
I'd
of
rather,
5 little
yeah.
baby bites of steak. I paid for steak. Give me some steak. You know what I mean?
Right, exactly. I mean, I agree with that. The salmon was good, but at the same time, I ordered, I was there to mostly eat the steak, so I wanted a little bit bigger of a cut of the steak. So
Yeah.
that's really, I guess, the steak was good. I just wish there was a little bit more of it. But
Yep.
definitely didn't leave hungry, that's for sure, with the amount of like, the rice and the salmon and everything like that, everything like that beforehand. The soup was good. Overall, the
hmm
food was very good. They could have given us maybe a little bit more steak, a little bit larger cut of the steak, but overall, it was very good food.
Yep.
The show was good too. He was very interactive, and he was messing around with us, joking around with pretty much everybody at the table.
hmm
Sometimes sometimes there's really only like one person that's willing to interact, or sometimes they just like well, they'll just do the little tricks with the spatulas and that's it. But he was kind of interacting with everybody. He kind of made it a very even distribution and kind of kept everybody engaged, which was nice.
True.
You got the whole podcast is going to be my cat meowing in the background.
Yeah, I know, and I feel bad. Sorry, everybody. I'm like working.
um,
And I
but
was at
yeah,
work today. It wasn't enough, I guess.
right, exactly. But yeah, overall, I think Kaito Teppanyaki was good. And again, for the $50 compared to what you're going to pay with the other cruise lines as well, it
Well,
is
Norwegian, you're getting it for free. So
that's
I
true.
say free, but you could do that as one of your options.
Right,
Call it a day.
Norwegian. Yeah, Norwegian. It's kind of like you pay in your cruise fare for it ahead of time, but yeah, I think for the price, it was good. Could have had a little bit more, but that's kind of nitpicking, I guess. Overall, very good food. Just maybe
hmm
wish there's a little bit more, but that's not really going to impact my experience overall. I wasn't hungry leaving there.
Right.
That evening was the white party, which was fun.
Was the white party.
The white party was very good. A huge crowd. When I remember doing Seashore, and there just wasn't a whole lot of people up there, but that was also the Port Canaveral crowd, and that was also very cold. So I'll give them that.
I was
So I
saying
think,
there were people out and about.
oh yeah, there was a lot of people there.
hmm
The DJ was good. The music was good. Kind of the typical stuff that you're gonna find at a big deck party like that. But overall pretty good.
Yep.
And then going into, I guess, our final day of the cruise, though, was Ocean Key. And my first time going there because Seashore, I did not get the dock due to strong winds, although we did experience some strong winds
We did,
later
but
on
not
later
for
on
that
in the day.
reason.
Right, exactly. We got the dock first, which is good.
Yeah, it was nice. We actually used the turning basin instead of spinning and backing in, which
Yes.
was cool. And they just started recently doing that because of the bigger basin for World America and
Right.
the dredging they're doing for their new island. But
Yes. The new
Okay.
island is very
It's beautiful.
intriguing.
yeah,
The new island is very intriguing. I know nothing about it. Usually with stuff like that, especially when it's like a work in progress, people start
you
yapping
can
to
hear
me
some
for
people
some.
saying stuff, but
Right.
I have heard.
Yeah, usually somebody will come around and just be like, "Oh yeah, like this is what they're working on," and I haven't heard anything. Nobody knows a thing about it.
Nope.
So, but yeah, it's intriguing. I'm curious as to what they're gonna do there. But overall, the island of Ocean Cay itself, I thought was fantastic.
Yep. Agreed.
Yeah.
I loved it. It was a beautiful day. It's a beautiful island. That was your first time there. It was my second time there.
Right.
I went into the water. He didn't. Somebody's scared of the fish.
I don't like fish.
It was a beautiful view. The ship's right there. It was
Yeah.
hot, but I mean,
It was very hot.
The water was beautiful. Like I said, you should have
Yes.
gone in the water. But
Yeah. Nice, very clear blue water, lots of beach area. It was weird that there was no, chairs out on the beach, and there wasn't a whole lot of shade. But other than that, the island's fantastic. I wouldn't even, say that as a negative thing. I think it more preserves the natural look of the island. I think you start throwing beach chairs in there, it kind of clutters things up.
Okay, so there were no beach chairs on Lighthouse Beach, next to the ship. But if you went to the inside of the island in the inner quay, there was deck chairs for miles.
So it's got to be like an aesthetic thing because that's like the most photogenic part of the island.
You don't want the white deck chairs flipped upside down.
Right. So I'll give it to them on that. So yeah, I think So yeah, I think overall the island was very good. With as many people as were there, there's almost 6,000 people on that class of ship. You would think the island was very crowded, but it wasn't. It was very evenly distributed. Because they had the big beach in the middle, they had the beach on the side of the island, they had the beach right by the ship as well. So there was just tons and tons of space. Like if they could very well, obviously, like, don't think they're going to do this, maybe not, maybe they will, who knows, but if they extended the pier a little bit further back, and they could dock a second ship there, I still don't think crowding would be a problem. And that's impressive for an island that's kind of smaller than all of the rest.
Very true.
Even Coco Cay is a very small island, and Ocean Cay is even smaller than that, but they make so good a use of that space. They have multiple buffets throughout the island to eat at. You also have, again, all the beaches, multiple bars. The bars weren't overcrowded.
We were sitting at the main bar almost all day, and not
no
crowded
issues
at all.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how they did it, but they did a fantastic job when it comes to crowd control in that island to, keep everything from looking and feeling overcrowded. So major props. The island's also not built up to be like a theme park either. As cool as Coco Cay is, you can't do anything there except sit on a chair for free. Like if you want to do anything else, even want to go to an adults only, you got to pay for that. You got to pay to go on the water slides. You got to pay to do zip lines.
You just sit there, but I think that's what people want. Like that's the purpose of going there.
Right.
It's a safe beach. You're not getting haggled by anybody. It's a beautiful view, beautiful water.
Right.
Great weather because if they're able to dock, it's good weather, and you just have a good beach day out of it. There was DJ stuff on the pool. They were doing like beach Olympics. They were doing dance classes. They were doing all this stuff.
Yeah. I overall, honestly, I think that might be maybe a hot take, but it might be my favorite private island.
Yep.
I don't have to pay an exorbitant amount of money just to do something different. It's a beach day.
Yep.
It's a beach day. That's pretty much your only option, but at the same time, it's a great beach. You've got lots of beach area. There's enough there for a day. So, and I'm also not going to be paying hundreds of dollars just to do something there. If I want to do an activity, I don't have to pay for anything. I do see Coop in the chat says, will MSC take a hit from the ship unhooking off the line? Okay, so yeah, I guess we can go ahead and get into that. So we had a little bit of an incident that some of you may or may not have heard about. And probably seen the videos at this point. I think my video is trending about 17.5 million views, and I think his video is like almost 12 million views. It's unbelievable to think about with that
Yep.
kind of views. But you've probably seen it. If not, just go to TikTok. You'll probably find it. But
Or Instagram.
or Instagram, yes. But essentially what happened is that actually we noticed it ahead of time. And, the weather in the Caribbean and in the summertime is just very unpredictable. But, we noticed some dark clouds. We're like, hey, yeah, let's head back to the ship. It looks like it's going to start raining. Get ahead of the crowd before anything else. So we're sitting in the room and we see the wind start to kick up. And like the wind was so strong that it was ripping the sand up from off the beach, which kind of takes a lot. I would say that takes a pretty strong wind to pick up sand from the beach, I would say.
Got it.
And the captain ended up coming on later and saying there were over 40 knot winds. So, knots to miles per hour for us is like, what, 45 maybe? 43,
Like
45 miles per hour,
something like that.
which is a very strong wind.
Yeah, it is.
But when you're going from just, like a light breeze to 45 mile per hour winds in the span of maybe 2 minutes, that can also cause problems. If it's increasing winds, usually you can kind of combat that. Or if the winds are going to be strong, you can kind of do things.
Perpendicular to the ship. So if it was like parallel to the ship or pushing it,
Right.
fine. But this was perpendicular, pushing 90 degrees.
Right.
side of the ship.
Exactly. I've been seeing the flooding, the comments like, oh, why don't they just use the thrusters? And it's like, you can't really react. It's not going to react that quickly either, but there's also so much you can do in a situation like that too. Again, like you mentioned, it's coming straight, basically broadside of the ship. It's not like it's a headwind. It's not pushing us into the dock. It's not pushing us forward. It's going right against us at 45 miles an hour. It's basically a giant wall that you're pushing against. And it just started, we started to kind of drift off the dock a little bit like that. And then, as we started grabbing our cameras going, oh crap, we're coming off the dock a little bit. And that's when
right.
you basically, yeah. And at that point it was, we started hearing all the pops from all the rope snapping. They saved the front bow lines, which was good, but like kind of the ones that kind of stick off to the side.
Yeah,
right.
Lost on the front and the
Lost
back.
those.
According
Yes.
to Christian. Thank you for Christian for telling
Yes.
us that.
But yeah, so lines kind of snapped. We drifted pretty far. I would say we got a good 50 feet off the dock, which was kind of impressive.
More than 50 feet. It was
More than
like
50.
twice the length of the ship, or the width of the ship that we were out. So I'd say at least 100, 100 something feet, 200 feet.
Right. And I obviously big thanks and big shout out to the crew and the captain, of course, keeping the ship safe, keeping all the guests safe and things like that. I think it was, kind of looking back, I was like, oh, like, why aren't we releasing those front lines, or those front lines are going to snap? But basically what they did is they just opened up the reels for them and just let the ship drift. That way they could at least stay tied to the dock to come back in and help them come back in later. But also if they would have just, if they would have let go of the lines and just let it drift for a few minutes, any further, we had to have been coming close to running aground, because that channel is very, very narrow. So,
very narrow.
Very narrow. So, had we gone any further, probably would have caused an issue. So, overall.
So the other thing is the gangway fell in the water. Nobody got
Yes.
hurt.
Yes.
Unlike Norwegian Epic a couple days before, where people did fall in the water.
Yes, very fortunate that, we had no injuries and nobody fell in, which is great. But yeah, like you said, the gangway did fall in the water. So basically what we did at that point is we finally got control of the ship. And, because honestly, those winds didn't last very long either. They came pretty much, like, they left as quickly as they came.
Front of the storm, and then it was just kind of constant.
Right,
20,
exactly.
25,
Right, exactly. At that point, it was manageable. It was more of just like at that point a downpour of the weather, of the rain and stuff like
it
that.
was pouring rain. People were stuck on. We didn't leave till 9 p.m. This was around 2-3 o'clock.
Yes.
Um,
And with a 9 p.m. departure, that is on time as well. That it's
yes,
fairly
people were
late.
saying we left late. They
Yes.
always usually leave at 9 o'clock.
Yes, we did leave late technically, like on paper, yes, a later time of day, but we did not leave late later than our actual scheduled departure time.
Correct.
Which
and
is
then,
good.
We had to stay off the dock. They had to get the gangway. We came back alongside. People kept coming back on. I mean, that was it. I mean, like I said, glad nobody got hurt. It was kind of crazy. That had never happened to me before. Glad
Right.
we
Oh
were
yeah.
on the ship. My Wi-Fi was working on the island. Brandon's wasn't.
Yeah,
Android's
mine was.
better.
I
Just
think.
saying that.
I think because I went back for just a short amount of time back onto the ship, and when I came back out on the island the second time, it reconnected, but it connected properly the second time. So I think it was working fine. So the island Wi-Fi overall was good. They
Yeah,
do
the
have their
Wi-Fi
own
on the ship was
separate
good.
router. Yeah, they have
But
their separate router on the island, which was nice.
yeah. Then I mean, it was beautiful. I mean, besides the
Yeah.
storm, I mean, Caribbean, they happen everywhere,
Right.
And it's
And it was nice after the storm.
it was very nice after the storm. I mean, the Caribbean heat kind of came out to bake us like a bag of crab legs, but I mean,
Yeah.
that's to be thing. And then, when the sun starts going down, it's fine.
Right, exactly. Yeah, we ended up going back out onto the island after all that happened. We went and got dinner in the main dining room, which we'll get to after I mention this. But we went back out on the island pretty much probably an hour, 2 hours before we left, and it was right at sunset, which was very nice. Never really been able to do something like that before, so it was very
Yeah.
unique in that sense. So we went out and got
I
some
mean,
golden hour
we were
photos.
getting mixed. Some people were saying, "Oh, all aboard's at 8, all aboard's at 9, or at 8:30," and we were like, "We don't know." So we got off. We're like, "Okay, we'll make this quick." And then obviously,
Yeah.
our friends were out there too, so we felt more
Yes.
comfortable being out
Right.
there. But it was fine. We enjoyed a great
Yeah.
sunset. It was beautiful in the gold. They say golden hour, whatever, and because not a lot
Yeah.
of people get that picture.
For sure.
Because usually they're at dinner, but we had done the
Right.
super early dinner,
Right.
which worked out good.
Yeah, and you mentioned golden hour. I mean, I'll say it a million times, but that has got to be the most photogenic island, especially when it comes to private island, but the most photogenic island out there in the cruise lines. I
Yep.
mean, there's so many very unique and very nice vantage points throughout the island to get a good look at the ship and just overall like the look at the water. You get the lighthouse there. You can get the lighthouse with the ship in the photos. Like there's a lot of really neat, vantage points when it comes to photos opportunities on that island, which I thought was really cool.
Yep.
But going back to the early dinner, we did have our assigned time dining was 5 o'clock for that, which was quite early, but I guess in this scenario, it did give us the opportunity to get back off the ship. But so we had a 5 p.m. dinner. It was Italian night, and I believe we both had the chicken parm that night. It was very, very
We did.
good.
It was great. It was
Yes.
great.
Very grape. We had French onion soup as well as the appetizer. That was very good as well. It was very quick as well. It was a very quick,
Yeah.
good
We were in and
dining
out
experience.
super quick.
I would say within an hour, maybe an hour 15 at the most, we were in and out of there. And the food quality was fantastic. The chicken parm was very, very good, and the French onion soup that we
Great.
had was very good.
Great.
Yes, so I would say overall the dining, like when it comes to dinner dining experiences, I would say the Seashore is probably one of the better ones that I've had in a while. Very quick service, very easy, very good, like nice waiters, very interactive. They're always checking in on you, and the food quality was also very good as well. The buffet overall, it's hit or miss. I think again going back to the Embarkation Day lunch, very cold. I think MSC would really benefit if they had more offerings in their buffet. I think it would do them a lot of good.
Maybe more Americanized things. I know people have said they've been
Yes.
done better, but
They're getting there.
It's not Americanized enough.
Right. It's it seems like they've made a great improvement compared to the reviews from long ago. Several years ago, they've made a lot of improvements very quickly, but I think if they offered maybe just a little bit more, and again a little bit more Americanized stuff, then I think that would really greatly benefit them. I had even mentioned like if they partnered with somebody, kind of in the same scenario where Carnival partnered with Guy Fieri with Guy's Burger Joint. If MSC did something like that with a well-known, renowned chef or cook or something like that, and offered like whether it's chicken or a burger stand or something along those lines, I think that would really greatly benefit them. To include in their buffet. It doesn't need to be a upcharge. Not at all. But I think if they included something like that, I think it would really do a lot of good for them.
I think so too.
A lot of the things I think my biggest thing with the buffet is that they kind of like, they have it all there and they usually just load everything on top of it and that's what you get. Like in this scenario where I always like to get cheeseburgers. That's usually like my go-to anytime. Whether it's Royal, Carnival, Norwegian, whoever, like I always like to get a cheeseburger usually for my lunch. But with MSC, they load sauce, lettuce, tomato, onions, everything, like even the stuff I can pick off and stuff like that, which isn't a big deal, but like they'll smother it in sauce as well. And it's just like, I want a plain, right. Give me a plain cheeseburger and then put the toppings off to the side. Like perfect.
Like a condiment bar. There's a ton of room for the buffet was huge on that ship.
The buffet is massive on that class of ship. Massive to the point where there's basically the front and this back section. They're identical. It's the same exact thing. You just go further back, you'll get the same thing. Like you can get the same burger or the same pizza in the back part of the buffet.
Yep.
Breakfast was good.
Forget about the back part of the
right,
buffet.
exactly.
Nice.
That's a nice hack for this ship, is that a lot of people forget. You come in from the pool, through in the main entrance of the buffet, and you're gonna see the food right there. So you're gonna stop, you're gonna grab your food, and you're gonna find a table there. But not as many people walk all the way through to the back, to where you're more likely to find more seating in the back area. And you're also gonna probably find shorter lines back there as well. So I will say breakfast was good. Breakfast was always very good, very consistent.
Yeah, I mean, if you mess up an omelet, you've got an issue. But
right, they do have
like they only had hash browns one day.
Mm-hmm.
Where toppings for pancakes. Where's different types of waffles. Where's
right. So I think if they took a lot of like the space that they have within that buffet, I think they would really improve or really benefit from offering toppings, for things, like going back to the burgers,
Yep.
leave the burgers plain and then let me grab my slice of cheese or do just a slice of cheese on the burger, and then you can grab your lettuce, tomatoes and stuff like that on the side, and like in this case, grab yourself a pancake, grab yourself the waffles, and then you have the blueberries, the chocolate chips, the whatever, like strawberries, like leave that off to the side. You can always do it yourself. So I think they would benefit if they did something like that. Not a huge detriment to their overall experience.
There's still things that you're gonna want, but it's like
it's more of just like if MSC is listening to this
in the kids section, why were there fish fingers instead of chicken nuggets? Like those.
I know, right? I was hoping. I honestly.
I was in the kids section getting garlic bread, and the lady's like, "This is only for kids." I was like, "I'm getting it for my son." Let's bring you back Brandon a priest too.
Yes, it was going to me. I was the son. But it's more of just like it's almost like a thing of constructive criticism if MSC is listening to this, because I doubt they are. But I think if they were to do any changes to the buffet, there's definitely ways that they could improve it and make it better, an overall experience. Overall, I think MSC is still up and coming, and they've got a lot going for them. They've got a lot of things that they've improved on over the last couple of years. They haven't quite got it 100%, but the other people that do have it down pat have also been in the market and been in the industry for over 50 years. So, MSC is still up and coming, but and they're still not 100% Americanized. There's still a lot of Italian and European, things going on, and characteristics of their ships, you know, of the ship itself, sure, not really a big deal, but like when it comes to like the food and dining experiences, still a little bit
I don't
left.
even think we even talked about it. The ship itself was beautiful. Like other
Yes,
than like just our room, I mean the design's a little confusing.
yes,
The the air conditioning needs work. Please, why was the whole
yes.
ship hot?
It,
Please,
it wasn't
you're
it
not an
wasn't like a
aquarium.
right. It wasn't like a boiling hot or anything like that, but it definitely was like, the AC could have been knocked down a few degrees. It's kind of like when you walk into like your grandparents' house and they have the AC set to like 78 or 80.
79 or 78, and I'm like,
Right,
all
exactly.
right,
And
where's
you're
the
just sitting you're just kind of sitting in there, your grandparents talking to you, and like, "Oh yeah, yeah, catching up." But you're like internally you're like sweating, you know. Like that was kind of the feeling.
yep,
So, I think the something was going on with the AC, but it wasn't bad, but it definitely could have been a little cooler in the ship overall.
very
But
true.
like you mentioned, the design of that class of ship is very confusing. But once you kind of get the hang of it after like the first couple hours or the first day on board, it's pretty easy to pick up on. More just like little oddities, like the elevator banks don't pass through like they normally would. You have to kind of go around
Yeah,
it
like
in like a
if
U
you're saying that
shape.
not every single side is the same, like some sides are
Right.
different than the other, and
Right.
it's like why are they different?
Right, exactly. Like the aft elevators when you go up to 18, you can only go to as you're going, I guess, towards the back of the ship, you only can turn to the left to go out. You can't turn to the right for whatever reason.
Yeah,
But, it's the design of the ship. It's not really like, I didn't have a bad experience because I couldn't turn right out of the elevators. It's like it's one
right,
of those things. It's
exactly.
more of just
You can
like
get used
it's just odd. Is that's
to
it? But like you said, the ship was beautiful. It was in great shape. When I sailed on seashore, it was kind of rough around the edges, but I think
I
it
mean,
seemed more
there were
like a
some
bad
parts of
crowd.
it were like, yeah, like on the pool deck, like the floor was like bubbling, like
Oh, I noticed that. I
you,
kept tripping over it.
yeah, exactly. You almost trip on it.
Hmm.
I mean, they were working on the ship. There was not really any cracked glass except in one or two places.
Right,
Minimal rust. Um,
right. They definitely take
it
good.
was
I
fine.
do think they take very good care of maintenance with their ships a lot of the time.
Yeah.
There was very, sometimes you'll see rust, even on new ships, but I didn't see it anywhere, around the ship, or if I did, it was very small and things like that. So the ship overall was in great condition, I think.
Yep.
So I guess that'll kind of wrap everything up. Is there any additional comments about the ship that do you think we missed?
I do. Debark was super easy. I know
Oh
we
my
kind of
God,
touched on
Debark was
it. Debark
amazing.
was good.
That
Um,
was honestly like Royal Caribbean with the Oasis class out of Port Canaveral was like the gold standard. That was crazy. Like that was better than that.
yeah,
We just kind of
we got off
we just
pretty
walked
early though.
down.
So we kind of
Yeah,
went there before the rush, but no, it was
right. They hadn't even made the announcement yet, so I think we may have just gotten lucky. But overall, at least for us, it was very good. And we had an early train, like a very early train. It was like 9:30, which would not recommend because
yeah.
that's
Don't
kind of
do that.
just good luck on our part. But we knew that going into it. But he had to be back early, so we kind of took the risk. But we ended up off the ship, and we were at the Brightline station to get back by 7:30. And then Brightline, of course, like we mentioned earlier, was nice enough to accommodate us and actually got us onto the train earlier, to where we had pretty much been on the train heading
We got on the
home.
7:45 train. We
Right,
only waited a few minutes, and then
right.
we
We
got
were
on.
on the way home on the train and everything like that by 7:30 in the morning. Um,
Yeah.
Definitely not going to happen for everybody. I think we
Yeah.
got lucky, but at the same time, like it was very quick, easy, painless. I don't think we really even stopped walking. It was the facial recognition, so we walked up. The machines were fast, so we walked up, we stopped, ping, and then it was just that was it.
Yep. But it was a good cruise. I
Yes,
would.
overall great
3
cruise.
days was
Honestly,
too short.
yes.
3 days was too short, but
honestly, like
Maybe
today I was sitting.
in the future.
Yeah, today I was just sitting here like, man, I kind of wish we did a longer cruise. It was a very good ship. Like I had no complaints. Like I would gladly spend a lot more time on that ship, more than 3 days. So
I want something different. I've been on sea. I've been on it twice. I'm
right,
good.
right,
Just
exactly. Now I've
something.
done both. I've done both of those. Maybe Seaside might be slightly different, but I want to do Grandiosa or World America. Those are my next two on my list right now. So
Hmm.
trying to do those. But anyways, that will be our thing. So overall, a scale out of one to 10, what would you give the MSC Seascape?
I'd say like a 7 or an 8 out of 10. Like the small things here and there, fine. But the price that we paid, it was a nice little getaway.
Yeah.
I didn't have to be at work,
Mm-hmm.
and alcohol was flowing. Fine by me.
Was. Yeah, I would probably scale a little bit higher to 8.5, maybe a 9 out of 10. When you factor in the value of the cruise as well, it was we paid $450 a piece. We had unlimited drink package, the Wi-Fi package, and we had a balcony stateroom for 3 nights for only $450 a piece. That is an incredible value. And then on top of the dining experiences, everything like that. So when you factor the value with everything else that we did and experience on the ship, I think it was definitely a great value overall. And then the experience as well was just very good. So I would scale probably 8.5 to 9 out of 10, especially when you factor in the value for what you actually got.
100%.
So you heard it here first. An 8 from Dimitri, 8.5 to a 9 out of 10 from me. So nobody's perfect. If you get at a 10 out of 10, then somebody paid us. So somebody paid us if we're giving it a 10 out of 10. So MSC, hit me up. But but yeah, thank you all for hanging out this week. I hope you guys enjoyed this review of the MSC Seascape, and we will be back soon with another podcast here probably the next week or so. So have a good night, everybody, and thanks for listening and watching.
Peace.